Okay, class, welcome to Mr. Halpin's USA topic from home. Now, we are studying the changes made to immigration in the US of A. And look at me, I've written the title because I'm amazing, and I've even written the date, although I don't know when you'll be studying this. So for me, it's coronavirus day 3, which, well, I am quite excited about, let me tell you. Okay, so similar to normal. All right, start the quiz. You know the drill. 9 questions because, well, you're worth 9 questions. What can I say? So, question 1, 2, and 3, more recent. We've only studied those fairly recently, so they should be okay. More difficult, 2 marks. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know the drill. All right. I'd advise you to pause that and try and answer those in the books that the school has so kindly given you. Off you go. Now look at that, seamless. Oh, look at me. So first answer, who are Sacco and Vanzetti? We've got Italian immigrants who are also communists. And remember, they were the 2 people that were accused of killing 2 men and stealing $15,000. All right, so what was important about them? Well, they had a trial, then they were executed. Okay, executed means, killed. So let's have a little drawing. Look at those. Look at that. I should have been an art teacher. All right, so why is this important? Okay, basically, it's seen as showing the unfair nature of the court cases, of the trial, of America in general. Okay, the idea being that because they were communists, people weren't correctly looking at the evidence and were just saying, they're communists, let's kill them. Which actually, I think, is what you wanted to do in your trial that we did. But, it's fine if you want to murder people. Okay, so number 4, open door policy. All right, this is a policy of letting immigrants into the country. All right, so think of it like an open door. I know. So you've got 40 million people that entered before 1910. All right, then this gets reduced because of the Red Scare. Remember, it's red because of the communist flag is red. Not because, they hate blood or anything. So hatred to communists, including, remember the Palmer raids? Remember communists blew up Mitchell Palmer's... Oh, I'll get a light on, look at that. Mitchell Palmer's house, and then that obviously led to them going out and murdering a load of people and executing a load of people. Not executing, I'm talking about putting them in prison and kicking them out of the country. Right, and a lot of this was also to do with xenophobia. Remember, xenophobia, posh word, hatred of people from different countries. Fairly self-explanatory. So Weimar opposition, you've got 1919 Spartakists. Remember, they're communists. Then you've got 1920 Cat Putsch. Remember this guy's Wolfgang. Coolest name ever. Then you've got 1923 Munich Putsch, and there's little Hitler, bless him, with his swastika. Now, what was question 8? Who helped West Germany recover? So question 8, we're looking at Konrad Adenauer. But you could also say USA with the, look at my handwriting, with the Marshall Plan. How much money did they give to West Germany? Well, West Europe, sorry. That's right. Oh, look at you. I can hear you shouting it from here. 13 billion. Yes, exactly. Remember, they had factories and things like that. And then question 9. What was question 9? I should have written this down. What crime was new in the industrial period? So, new. Remember, social unrest. Smuggling was more common. And we'll put highway robbery in there, although it wasn't brand new. It was just made way more popular. All right, and bonus points if you tell me the social unrest. That's it. I can hear you shouting it from here. Peterloo Massacre, Luddites, and the Rebecca riots. Remember, they're the ones who dressed up as women because why not? Okay, so remember, our question is looking at immigration and restrictions. Immigration, people coming in to the country. Again, should have really been an art teacher. I mean, it's just amazing. And restrictions, this is like limiting or stopping. So, for instance, Mr. Halpin really needs to restrict the amount of KFCs he eats because he needs to stop eating KFC, otherwise he will get fat. Let's go with that. Okay, so I'm not going to show you all that. All right, so basically, question I want you to answer is why did they want to restrict immigration? Why did they want to restrict immigration? Okay, pause it now to have a think about it. All right, those are now some pictures to help you. Okay, so I have to think about jobs, think about whatever this lovely piece of art is, and these two here. Again, pause it if you're to give yourself time to think. All right, answers. All right, so they're accused of stealing jobs. Accused, someone's saying they did it. So, for instance, I may walk into a room and see that someone's eating some chocolate, and we're going to accuse Mr. Harvey of eating all the chocolate. Cities became overcrowded. Remember, too many people. Okay. When have we learned about overcrowded cities before? When have we learned about overcrowded cities before? Pause it to think about it. Oh, yeah, again, you're all shouting at me. I can hear it from miles away. Yes, that was it. Remember, we looked at industrialization, urbanization of the UK in the industrial period. Remember? Great. Here, this is religion. This is communist. So they thought immigrants were changing politics and religion. Okay, remember, they're terrified of communism. And this here, they thought they may have been German spies. Okay, so this guy's peeping around the tree because, well, that's what spies do, don't they? Okay, so the time we're actually going to be looking at now is 1910 to 1917 and onwards. So what was going on in American immigration between those 2 years? What did we look at? Yeah, exactly. Well done. The open door policy. Remember, think of it like an open door. People just coming in. And remember, we had 40 million before 1910. Right, huge numbers. Remember, what are they after? After that, look at that. Look at this. Remember, they're looking after that American dream. All right, they're looking after they want the car, they want the house, they want the freedom. Okay, so right, we're going to look at a few things. Remember, you can follow this in your booklet. Yeah. All right, so the first one we're looking at is in 1917. So this is when the open door policy starts to close. So we've got the Immigration Act. Right, remember, Act is like another word for a law because they're making something happen. So what they do is they decide to create a literacy test. Okay, and now a literacy test, literacy quite literally means, if you can read or write. So basically, they were giving people a test to see if they could read or write English. So that is what this picture here is showing. So if you could read or write in English, great, you're allowed in. If not, you couldn't be let in. Okay, so this is looking at basically if you're British, you could get in. If you were mainly from Northern Europe, more likely to. However, if you were poorer or from a country that didn't speak English, you were going to suffer. Even if you were rich and you were from somewhere that didn't speak English, you were still going to do well because, well, you could pay for a tutor, you could pay for lessons. And that's it. So mainly we're looking at people coming in, Western Europeans, and people that weren't allowed in now were Eastern Europeans. Okay. Now, because that's it. And remember, this is really bad for Eastern Europeans because remember, they're the ones who are probably more than likely trying to run away from some sort of war or some sort of religious persecution. Western Europe have kind of reduced the amount of wars and things like that are happening, apart from obviously World War. All right, so what I'd like you to do is I would like you to now pause it and answer these questions. So summarize the 1917 Immigration Act, right, in 30 words or less. Then tell me who was affected the most, and then why was Eastern Europe seen as a threat. Okay, so let's run through some answers. So summarize it. I've just written something quickly. 1917 Immigration Act. Literacy test, that's a keyword that we need to make sure we get in. I know I'm annoying you, Christine, by my really poor circling, but yeah, I've got to have fun somehow. Literacy test created to limit, keyword there, immigration. Richer immigrants from English-speaking countries benefited. They had the good side of it. All right, so who was affected the most? I put poorer Eastern Europeans because they're suffering, because they're the ones who are fleeing persecution but aren't allowed somewhere safe. And then I've said, why was Eastern Europe seen as a threat? Mainly it's communism. Okay, it's seen communism, right, because they're so close to Russia. So now we're looking at something called the Emergency Quota Act. Now a quota, this really is a limit. So if we go back to the KFC analogy, if Mr. Halpin said he's only allowed one KFC a week, which, as you know, is on a Friday, that is my quota, okay? Right, so what this means is they limited, or they reduced the number of immigrants that could come in to 3% of those already in the USA in 1910. So for instance, if there were 1 million immigrants from Ireland in 1910, then after this quota, you could only have 30,000 that were allowed to immigrate in. So to show you it a bit more clearly, imagine this is America. I know it's almost uncanny how much it looks like it. And we've got 20 Irish people in there in 1910. And then we've got, let's say, 4 Polish people. Okay, so that means then that because of the Emergency Quota Act, now we're only allowed 6 new immigrants, okay? I'm allowed 4. And the Emergency Quota Act, sorry, is in 1921, okay? So if that's what it's like in 1910, then in 1921, we're only allowed 6 immigrants in, or we're only allowed 1 Polish immigrant in. So to show you again, because you know I love art, these would be the new people. So basically, it's benefiting those people already in it. Now, those people already in it are probably going to be the richer countries. So the richer or English-speaking countries, okay? They're the ones that are already in America, so they're the ones that are already benefiting. So in total, mainly it's benefiting West, but Eastern Europe, again, it's just amazing how much this looks like Europe, they're suffering, okay? Mainly it's because less have come to America. Mainly less have come to America to do with money, okay? So what I'd like to do now is try and answer these questions here. Pause it, try and answer them in your book that we've given you. I'll go through the answers in a second. Okay, great. Let's have a look at the answers. Right, although I'm only allowed to, the thing that I'm recording this on is only letting me record 15 minutes at a time, and I just listened back to it, and my voice is possibly the most annoying thing in the world. So, sorry, year 10. All right, great. So, who was it that, wait, what was the question? All right, that was it. So the question was, who was more likely to flee from persecution, right? That's mainly Eastern Europeans out of the people coming to America. Right, mainly this is looking at World War One. Okay, remember I've cheated, but you would have to write World War One because, well, you just love writing. All right, and then the next question, again, I made a slight mistake there, is why should they not let more immigrants from Eastern Europe in, or why were they not letting it? No, they're scared of communism and revolution. Imagine if they see Eastern Europe as the poorer places, then if they let them in, they are more likely to want communism because communism benefits poorer people. And they're scared of this because of Red Scare. They're scared of pun rates. So quick summary, 1921, remember, we need the year, which, you know, it'd be silly to not include that, which I did. Emergency Quota Act, right? Limiting the number of new immigrants to 3% of the total from that country, okay? So if we have 1 million Irish people in 1910, we only had 30,000 in 1921. And this affects your Eastern Europe the most. Right. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is answer the question, why were we restricting people? Why were we why were the US, I wasn't there, not that old, why were the US restricting people in 1921? I mean, look at this. Look at it, it's beautiful. All right, so pause it and have a think. I don't know what happened there. All right, so great. What does this symbol mean? What does this symbol mean? What's happening to this house? That's it. Communism is attacking Mitchell Palmer's house. So we've got communist, anarchists who attacked Mitchell Palmer's house, which then led to the Palmer raids. Palmer raids where communists were arrested and deported, and often this would be anyone suspected of crime. How many communists were arrested? And can you give me an example of some communist anarchists that we've looked at? Pause it to stop it. That's it. Yes, well done for shouting that out, although you shouldn't shout out. 6,000. Okay, and anyone, the two that we've looked at, Sacco plus Vanzetti. Although they were not arrested for being communists, they were arrested for murder, and it just so happened they would treat them fairly because they were communists. Now, the fun doesn't stop, it keeps on going. National Origins Act 1924. So, 3 years later, national origins, this is about where you're from, okay? Okay, quota, remember what does a quota mean? Yeah, it means limiting or putting a number on it. So remember, Mr. Albon can't eat more than 1 KFC a week. That'd be fun. All right, so now we change it from 3% to 2%. Okay, and now it's no longer 1890, it's 1910. So we go from 3% 1910 to 2% of 1890, and that is significant this year. We'll look at that in a second. So the reason why that's significant is so basically they're saying that the immigrants that were in 1910 aren't good enough. They're saying we don't like these immigrants. We need better immigrants. The immigrants that were better were before 1890. So it's saying these USA is saying these immigrants good, these immigrants are bad. So it's basically saying those let in through the open door policy are bad. Now, the ones let in during this time, or during the 1890, we're looking at Northwest Europe. Okay, Northwest Europe. So this is predominant English speakers normally, or those with dual language. Okay, and they're richer. Okay, they're richer, and you guessed it, they're also mainly white. Okay, so it's saying the ones that came in 1910 from Eastern Europe, it's saying that's bad. It's saying 1890 earlier, good. Okay, what I'd like you to do, answer these questions, remember, pause it, write it in your book, we'll go through those in a second. So the basic difference between 1924 National Origins Act and 1921, and yes, the name is different, but I need a bit more than that. Why do USA see Northern Europeans as better than Eastern Europe? That's meant to say Eastern. And a capital letter. Oh my God, my handwriting's awful. And then summarize it. Summarize it 30 words or less. Again, my handwriting is awful. Try to get my fat hand out of the visualizer. Right, pause it and then go through it, and then I'll go through the answers in a second. Okay, so difference 1921, we're looking at 3% of those in 1910. 1924, 2% of 1890. Remember, it's basically saying the ones between 1890 and 1910 are pointless. So this is now benefiting those from Northern Europe. Why is this happening? Xenophobia. What does xenophobia mean? That's right, hatred of other countries or those different predominantly, and this mainly focuses at sort of non-white people. Right, so then what was that? Quick summary. So I've said racist restrictions. So it's racist, it's similar to xenophobia, but you could probably change that, be better, to xenophobic. Restrictions to benefit Northern Europeans as quotas moved from 3% of 1910 to 2% of 1890. Okay, great. Now, last one. Right, now we've gone up from 1924 to 1929. So we've gone 5 years on, and we're now looking at the Immigration Act. Yeah, that's the second one that's called that. Sorry. Second one's called that. 1917 is Immigration Act. 1929 is Immigration Act. Maybe they've just got bored of naming. I mean, I would. So now, really, this is a strong limit. Okay. So now we're not messing about with quotas, not messing about with numbers, fancy percentages, or okay, well, we'll let this people in from this place with just a flat, no, 150,000 max. That's it. Okay, that's it. So as soon as we get to 149,999, one more in, close the door. That's it. Not allowed out. Okay. Now, what this meant was 85% of these were from Northern or Western Europe. Remember, these are richer areas. Okay, richer areas. Now, we are getting very xenophobic here. Not us personally, I'd never do that. Obviously, you wouldn't either, but the USA would. So they're very xenophobic, which means they're basically saying no Asian immigrants allowed at all. Okay, so this meant no people from China, no people from India. They're just really limiting anyone from those sort of areas. Okay, so now, again, amazing art. So now what's happened is we've gone from, oh my God, I know I joke, but that really is awful. I am sorry, Ita. So now we've gone from people coming in, the open door, and now it's closed, and look at these two people closing it shut, okay? All right, that guy with the purple head, loving it. So no entry, the door is now closed. The door is now closed. Now what I'd like you to do, I know you're going to love this, a bit of a red home zone, because you're not at school, but basically, remember, I know you don't have to write a red pen or anything. I'm not going to send to seclusion. Unless your parents or guardians want you to send to seclusion. Maybe you've got a spare room. I don't know. So, what you can do is draw a bit of a graph. Restrictions to immigration on the side. Time on the bottom. So, restrictions, so high restrictions. Or strict, that's probably better to say. And then low here. So, open door. Closed door, let's call it. Okay, that makes more sense. What I'd like to do is plot a graph to show how restrictions in immigration has changed. Okay, make sure you're putting the years of these things on the bottom, and then I'd like you to explain why these changes were made. Be specific about the dates. Okay, if something vital happens in 1921, what do you think is happening around that time that meant they had to change that? Okay, so a quick thing where it could look like. It could look like this, it could look like that. However you think, I'm not going to give you the answers, but what I want you to do is wherever you think something changes, I want you to then write out a little bit about why it might happen. What I'll do is I'll give you a few minutes to try that without, so pause it now to try it without the help, because you don't need the help at all times. Right, now try and include all those answers. So if you've given it a go and you couldn't do it, found it tricky, try to include those keywords now, or if you want to just check your answer, give it there. All right, pause it again. I'll go through the answers now. All right, so mine would look a little bit like this. What have we got? So we've got basically open door policy. We're loving it, 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 we're loving it. Now we've got a change. Okay, so things have changed. Then we may stick there a few years, and then boom, another restriction. We may stick there for a little bit. Boom, another change, and then we may stay there for a number of years, and then boom. Okay, so what I'd do is I'd say this is 1917. Okay, this is this is then 1921. This is then 1924. This is then 1929. Okay, so what you can do is then tell me using your booklet what goes there, and I'd like to tell me why. So here, 1921, you've got Palmeraids. Okay, then 1924, it happens again because you still got this feeling of the Red Scare. The Red Scare and xenophobia is happening throughout this time. In 1929, xenophobia in particular is changing. You could also mention Sacco and Vanzetti. Sacco and Vanzetti is going on at this time, okay, because they're caught in 1920s. However, their trial or their appeals carry on, so they still have an effect throughout the time. All right, and then the open door policy is going here. All right. Have fun. Remember, make sure you're sending me anything, or any of your teachers, anything that you need answers for, questions for. Make sure that you're, having a go at those revision guides. For instance, having a look at the questions at the back, and you're actually trying to answer them and sending your teachers them to mark. Okay, quickly take a picture, send them in, because we just can't afford to lose any more time. All right, it's been a pleasure teaching you Year 10, as always. And survive. Try and survive.